This is a McLean Montage Sports Production. Fit Fam, New York, one of the few places the whole family can come down and get in shape.
I copy and paste it. Let me tell you something, man. I go into my notepad. When I see something, I just copy it down. Boom.
Don't you dare eat garbage. Eat better meals.
The reason why I'm here is because the man that's going to speak to this championship football team is the man that changed my life. 13 years I went down the wrong road. I was highly addicted to cocaine and alcohol, and I heard that man William King Hollis tell me, when you work for your purpose will work for you. And I didn't understand it until I found my purpose. After I found my purpose, I reached out to that man and told him that.
What I mean by that? Like, you make mistakes, you guys are young. Sometimes the words that's gonna come in and out your ear, you're not gonna pay attention to. If I could look back at some of the mistakes I've made, because we're all gonna make them, I want you guys to learn from them. So that's why I want to come up with the foundation to give back to you guys. This is not to fill my pockets, this is none of that. It's to literally give back to you, because you guys work your tails off. And I remember when I won our first championship, you know, when I went to my mom, kind of looked at me and laughed and said, "What do you want, a ring or you want the light bills paid?" So that spoke volumes. So I said, I don't ever want a Freeport football team to ever work their tails off and have to worry about getting their rings and jackets. I'm gonna make a confession. The 2001 Long Island Championship team that Freeport had the first team, I have a ring, but I don't have a jacket. And I couldn't afford a jacket. And I said, I promised myself I would never have a kid ever have that feeling. So I just want to thank my first sponsor to our first event. He provided all the food. He keeps me not as fat when I'm fighting. when I'm done fighting, I get chunky. So I just want to bring Dan up real quick and have him just, tell his story.
I started this company out of my mom's kitchen, right? Prior to that, I was basically a broken human being, right? Like I didn't have anything, right? Like I had nothing, right? I started this with one friend who was my first customer, and now we have 200 customers all across Long Island with no money, right? I started with a $60 that I had from I was stocking. At the time, I was stocking shelves at Stop and Shop overnight, and I took one of my paychecks and I bought the food required to make my first batch of meals out of my mom's kitchen, and that's basically how I started. And then 1 turned to 2, turned to 3, turned to 4, turned to we serve athletes just like Chris right here and Eddie, and we help these guys stay on track before these big fights or anything like that. So I know like sometimes life gets you down, and there's certain environmental things in your life that you can't control. But there's always a choice, right? You always have the choice to do something different than where you're at, you know, whether you think so or not, but there always is somewhere else to go and something else to do to better oneself. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for letting me share.
You hear that a lot of times, somebody changed your life, but he really did. I was probably fat, overweight, out of shape.
We got pictures.
I got pictures to prove it. And I remember walking into Weidman Synergy, and I ran into this guy, and I was like, oh man, what are you doing? I had no clue about mixed martial arts. And sometimes people talk, and they tell you what they're gonna do for you, but 9 out of 10 times they really don't do anything for you unless you can do something for them. I had nothing to offer this kid, and he literally took me under his wing, and 3 years later, I was fighting for the Ultimate Fighter Championship, and Mr. Chris Weidman is one of the reasons why, and I'm bringing him up, and I couldn't be more proud to share the stage with my brother from another mother, Mr. Chris Weidman.
I think sports was my outlet to find something that would separate me and make me feel special about myself. So I grew up playing everything. I played basketball, I played, I did everything. Hockey, soccer, lacrosse, you name it, I did it. But about 7th grade was the first time where I jumped into wrestling, and I started feeling like, wow, this could be my thing. Because my brother was like a really good football player, and I was like, I don't want to be in that element because I don't want to compete with him in that. I want my own thing. So I started doing my thing with wrestling, and I started setting goals for myself. And so basically throughout high school, I accomplished some great things, but my goal was always to be a national champion. And so throughout my high school career, I didn't do that. I became multiple-time All-American, became a New York State champion, but so people thought I was successful and people thought I was athletic, but I didn't really accomplish what I wanted. So then it got to the point when it was my senior year and everyone was expecting me to go to one of these big schools, top program, because all these schools were looking at me, and I was kind of making it. I was wearing all these shirts that they were sending to me. And then when it came down to like being honest with everybody, it was like, wow, he didn't pass the Division I clearinghouse. If you don't know, Division I clearinghouse is a combination of your SAT scores and your GPA. And during high school, my first 2 years, I literally I would just go to class enough to where I could be eligible to compete in sports, but obviously, I didn't realize about this Division I clearinghouse until it was too late. So I tried to pick my grades up. I wasn't able to do it. Next thing I know, I'm going to Nassau Community College. And you guys know how it is. A lot of you guys are high school kids. You get judged based on that. And if you let it bother you, and you let that be a projection of your potential, it will be. But if you get away from the environment that was keeping you in that spot, you can grow. My wife, she went to school. She went to Hofstra. She graduated with honors. She got her the #1 accounting job in the world at PricewaterhouseCoopers. She was doing great. She was making $65,000 a year, and her husband was making $12,000 a year. And so I remember going to the accounting parties with all these nerds. And I'm in there, and they're like, "Oh, so what do you do for a living?" And I'm like, I'm assistant coach at Hofstra University. They're like, "Oh yeah, nice, you're on the staff," and they can't find me on the website because I'm a volunteer assistant. They can't find me on the website. Stuff all that just kind of motivated me. I knew I was going to find something, some type of outlet. And at the time, there was a couple of choices. I'm kind of like a little crazy when it comes to things. So actually, I was playing hockey when I was super young, from like kindergarten to 6th grade, and I was really good. I was probably the best in bowling history. Down in PAL hockey, rolled on the roller skates, the 4-wheelers back, like the quads back in the day, the old skates. And but my goal was to be in the NHL. So I stopped playing because my parents couldn't afford ice hockey in 7th grade. I started doing all the free sports in school. And but when I was 25 years old, I'm at this crossroads. I just graduated. I'm gonna get my master's. I'm like, you know what? I see these Islanders out at the clubs. I'm bigger than them. I feel like I'm more athletic than them. I understand the mindset of winning at this point through years of wrestling, trials and tribulations. I'm like, I'm gonna make the NHL. And I literally haven't played hockey or put on skates since 6th grade. So what I did is I went down to the bank. I took out a $1,000 credit card, and I went down to the hockey store, and I was like the Mighty Ducks. I don't know if you guys ever seen the Mighty Ducks, but there was one point where they got hooked up with all this cool equipment. And I always wanted to be that kid on Mike, so I felt super rich. I'm in there, I'm buying all this stuff. And I went down to the hockey rink, and there was all these high school kids playing. I'm like, all right, I know I'm gonna be rusty for like, a couple months, but at 6 months, I should be ready to go and try out for the Islanders. So I get on the skates, and I start skating around, and I'm like, oh man, these kids start schooling me. I always was like the fastest, I had the best slap shot, wrist shot, it was super accurate. I was the worst person on that rink, and I had no chance of being in the NHL, so I was like, damn, this is done. So, and I couldn't return the equipment, so that was my wife wasn't too happy about that. So then there was a thing called mixed martial arts that everyone was talking about, and like I said earlier, I was bullied a lot growing up, and there was like small things that happened, like people would talk to me, and as this MMA was getting bigger, they'd come up to me, I'd be out at freaking Patty McGee's over here, or Rocco's. I remember I was there one night, and one of the kids from high school, which is funny, it's like he didn't know he played a part in me becoming who I became, but like he was there hanging out with me. He's like, yo, with this MMA thing, I've been thinking like you were such a good wrestler, and your brother Charlie used to kick your ass all the time. You're super tough. Like I always think about you when I see these guys fight. Like you'd be perfect for it. I'm like, I know. I was like, so that's kind of was like me kind of like jumping in. Next thing I know it. I went down to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, Matt Serra's Academy, in East Meadow. I bought the gi, I signed up, it was like $160 a month, and I had no money at the time, so I'm like, this is crazy. And I was gonna do it for 3 months. And so I wore the gi, I just, I didn't want anybody like to think I'm anybody special, I just wanted to start from the beginning, so I'm starting my back and all that. When I was wrestling and I didn't accomplish my goals all through those years, I was able to assess my career and figure out why. I was able to sit back a little bit during this time. And it was really because I wasn't working as hard as the hardest workers in the room. I wasn't the hardest worker. And I kind of tried to trick myself into being confident by just mentally like pushing it into me. I'm the best. But I wasn't acting like I was the best by working super hard and doing the right things. And I didn't have good routines. So when I got into MMA and I got into that jiu-jitsu gym, and for 3 months I just worked harder than everybody and grinded. And next thing I know, I entered into this tournament at the end of it, and it was this big Northeast tournament championships. I know everyone's a black belt, I'm a white belt. And I jump into this thing, and there was an absolute division, which is like every weight combined, and there was your weight class, so I did both. And I beat all 13 guys, all by submission, submitted every one of them. And I won a $1,000 check at the end of it. I got $2,000 sponsorship, and I got like a championship belt. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. If I do this every month, I could be making more money than I'm making over at the house right now. Like, this is easy. So that's when I was like, wow, I've never made money my whole life wrestling. And now I just made $1,000. I'm like, now I gotta learn the striking, let's go. I walk in there and I want them to know, I'm not this talented kid that's, just whatever. I just want them to think like, this is the hardest work I've ever seen. And I started just becoming that kid, and those habits became real, and now that's like really who I am. When I go to that gym, it's just like natural. And it wasn't always natural for me, so I just changed that. And then next thing I know, I just stopped losing. I just kept beating one guy after the next. I was beating the best kids in the country, and then finally I got to the UFC, then I was beating the best guys in the world. And then next thing I know, I'm going against what they call is the greatest of all time. This guy is undefeated, Anderson Silva.
My hero.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that.
Twice.
So going into that fight, it's like, there I am. I'm only 9-0. One of the youngest kids, or at least with the amount of fights, to be fighting a guy like Anderson Silva. And I had no doubts I was beating him, and I knew I was going to finish him. And I would say that out loud. I wasn't afraid to say these things. And people would laugh at me. People would be, are you kidding me? You fight Anderson Silva? And you think you could beat him? Like, I had death threats. Like the Brazilians, like that's their national hero. If I'm saying I'm going to submit this guy and like choke him out, they're not too happy about that. So I had a lot of crazy stuff happen during those times. But anyway, next thing I know it, I do it. I became the world champion, beat Anderson Silva all in one night, and then I went on and defended my belt 3 times, and I plan on getting the belt back again. But my main message to you guys is everything's really about your mind. It's all about having confidence and believing in yourself, having goals, and truly believing in yourself, and not being afraid to say it out loud. No matter if your best friend or your worst friend or a stranger will laugh at you, it doesn't matter. Believe it, say it, and make it happen. And it's not just about, you're not going to be able to truly believe it if you're not putting the work in. So when you're shortcutting and you're not doing the right things, it's going to mess with your mind. You can't fake it in your mind unless you're putting the actions in. Are you crazy? Why would you do this? I had my first surgery in 10th grade. And my senior year in high school, they told me I should never wrestle again. I've had so many doctors and people tell me, like, looking at my body and stuff like, what are you doing? This is crazy. I didn't care. You know, I mean, I pushed through. There was no stopping me. Surgeries, I've had 3 hand surgeries. I'll go hip surgery, 2 neck surgeries, no surgery. I've had it all. Okay, they all suck. But you gotta push through. Don't make excuses. But if it means that much to you, nothing will stop you. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Chuck.
I get goosebumps when this dude talks. I get goosebumps because life truly comes full circle. I literally remember going to UFC 101, and when I was at this UFC 101, I was probably 325 pounds. And I remember, Matt probably does not even remember this. I remember sitting ringside because my boss bought me a ticket, I couldn't afford it. And I was like, I could do this. And everybody looked at me and said, you got too many vodka and Red Bulls, it's not happening. and I started to doubt myself. But as I'm watching this, I found somebody that believed in me. My boss at the time believed in me. And I was playing flag football. He's like, I was a better wrestler than a football player. And I remember seeing Matt ringside, and I went to Matt and said, hey, you know that Chris Weidman guy? I wrestled with him. Give me a shot. And literally, Matt just looked at me, and dude, Matt's he's an amazing human. And he's like, no doubt, come down. He probably thought he'd never see me. But what Chris said resonates. You gotta believe in yourself, guys. I promise you, I don't know what you wanna do, guys. I'm talking to you champions right here in the front row. I don't know what you wanna do in life, but you can accomplish it. If your dreams don't make people laugh at you, shame on you, you're not dreaming big enough. You're not dreaming big enough. We're not gonna reach everybody, I just hope we can reach one kid in this room. One kid, I hope you're listening, maybe 3, maybe 4. Let's beat the odds. And I know a lot of you guys have tough situations at home. A lot of you guys have things that you're dealing with that your coaches don't know. Heck, maybe your parents don't know. It's just living in between your ears. But like Chris said, that's the powerfulest tool in your body that you possibly can have, is your mind. And this man broke the mold. I'm not gonna say another word.
Long Island, man. It's William King Hollis, international motivational speaker, speaking live in your beautiful city. Passed over heroin overdose. Father locked up. He was a hitman, street guy on the east side of Detroit. When I was a kid, all I saw was my mother on couches nodding, high, and fighting just to be a decent mother. As a child, she was molested by her father. And a lot of people and a lot of women, no matter which race or color or creed, a lot of women got to eat that and swallow that within their family because they're afraid to go to the police department, or in our neighborhoods we call them snitches, or we don't deal with the police, but we never think about the woman. One of the most special entities in the world, and I say it all the time. One of my favorite sayings is, only in the womb of a woman can a man breathe underwater. And I say that's why the woman is the most special being on this earth. Get back to my story 4 years ago. I sat on the side of a Turkey Hill gas station. I had a cracked vertebrae. I cracked my vertebrae, couldn't play football no more. Mother was dead, I had nothing more to live for. One day a coach named Bernie Nortowski was walking into a gas station in Reading, Pennsylvania, and he saw me. And he said, "William Hollis, you broke the single game sack record against me last year. What's going on?" I said, "Coach, I cracked my vertebrae." He said, "How did you get here?" I said, "One of my friends is from this area, got in a car accident, parents made him come home, and I didn't have parents to go home to. So we was planning on living the life, getting an apartment, but mama and daddy still ran his life." But like a lot of kids growing up in our city, sometimes, like I said, I didn't have a mama, I didn't have a grandmother, I didn't have anybody left. And one day coach said, "William, my wife won't allow you to come sleep in my basement." I probably was the only African American in the neighborhood, but they took me in and they taught me this. They taught me about love and family. And that's when I realized it never mattered how big the house was. The only thing mattered was the love inside of it. So he started to give me love and gave me a job. And I started coaching the defensive line of the ASI Panthers in Reading, PA. And after the second week, a teacher watched me in the crowd and she said, "The kids love how you interact with the players. I want to see if you could come volunteer and speak to a group of 5 young men." And this school is called Reading Intermediate High School. Intermediate High School is for kids that got gun charges and all kinds of charges, man, just can't function in the regular school setting. And within 5 minutes, those kids was in tears. When I spoke and these kids started crying, I started to think about my life, because a lot of these adults know when we start talking about our past, sometimes it eats us up a little bit. And at this time, I was only 26, 27 years old. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Life, when in the end of the movie, all those guys start disappearing and all his friends start dying, and basically everybody just started disappearing. That's how I felt. And I was walking back to the hotel I was staying at. Basically, you take a 4 or 5 and blow my brains out. Within 5 minutes before getting to the hotel, I got a phone call from the assistant principal, and they asked me, "How much do you charge to speak?" At this time, I never knew anything about speaking. I knew nothing about motivational speaking. Only speaker I ever heard of was Les Brown. So I walked into the hotel, the Abraham Lincoln Hotel, it's a historic hotel in Pennsylvania. And I went to the computer, turned on YouTube, same thing I used to do as a football player. You know, we ain't had the money to go to all the big camps and none of that stuff. I just YouTube, watch him play, and I do the move myself. So I watched Les Brown, I watched how he interact with the crowd, how he made the crowd laugh when he talked about his worst pains. And I said, man, I know I can do this. Fast forward, 3 years later, Kings and Queens, I'm over 300 million views on YouTube. I'm the first speaker to speak during Milan Fashion Week. I have the #1 football speech in the world, just past Al Pacino Any Given Sunday speech on YouTube. And the way I did that speech was, it's all about purpose. I got a saying that saved many lives in my lifetime, and it goes, work for your purpose and not the money. I was the speaker in the industry that had no college degree. His father was a hitman, his mother was a heroin addict. They said, what can this kid teach corporate companies? What can this kid teach football teams? And what I found out I can teach them is life. The will to fight. The will to put their life on the line to save their brothers and sisters. That's what I did every single day. See, a lot of us, we grow up and we watch our mothers cry. We watch our fathers abandon us. And we gotta sit there and everybody think we're supposed to be normal. And we're supposed to be happy all the time. But in the truth, when we step on the field, that's our sanctuary. That's the only place that we feel that we got a family. And a lot of players understand what I'm saying. It's a lot of players in here, like I said, you set up nights hearing your mama cry. You saw the days when she couldn't pay bills. In my viral football speech, I say this quote, and I say, we didn't come this far to only come this far. A lot of entrepreneurs in this world and a lot of human beings, they lose their greatness because they forget where they started at. They forget the child that laid on their mother's lap. They forget the days when they had to go to the store and get a pack of ramen noodles before they worked at the Fortune 500 company. The day you lose your hunger is the day you lose lose your life. You no longer exist anymore. So what I tell every individual and human being I meet for the rest of my life is to live full and die empty. Don't worry about the things you don't have. Focus on the things you do have and understand that that gift that you want to bring to this world, everything you needed, you was born with it inside of you. So I'm gonna tell you this, if a kid can bury his mother to a heroin overdose that his own uncle sold her, if a kid can grow up not being able to read till he was 16 years old, but still one day stand on the stage in front of Paris Hilton and Philip Platt in Milan, I wanna ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what can't you do? You see, the purpose of life is to live, not to exist. It's to wake up every single day and empty the tank for that dream that you got. Most individuals on this earth believe that we have forever to live, but I promise you it's only a moment. What you pour into this earth every single day is what you will be remembered for. I was over $30 million still sleeping in the shelter. The speech that saved my life, kings and queens, and this is just saying when I say work for your purpose and not the money. It's called The Game of Life. You go to YouTube after you leave tonight and you type in best football speech ever. That's all you gotta type in. I was getting evicted in Huntsville, Alabama. I had my last of my money that I made from Milan. I had that whole way faith, all the way through. When he shot that video, I drove to Atlanta, Georgia, slept in the parking lot, Camp Creek parking lot, the Cinema Theater, and slept in the parking lot that night. I slept in that parking lot for 2 nights in a row, in my tours, and then I get a call from the videographer that shot the video and say, Will, your video is trending. And that was the day King Hollis was born. My career started. So kings and queens, with no money, no marketing plan, no college degree, I travel and make $25,000 to $30,000 each event. So I tell people, don't believe me, just watch it. I'm gonna show you how to become the greatest with your purpose and not a dime. So if anybody in here ready to give up, ready to quit, or think they made it, I'm telling you, you're just getting started. The best gifts come from the bottom. And what you're looking at, kings and queens, is that rose that grew through that concrete. I'm international motivational speaker William King Hollis, and it was an honor speaking to you.
I don't know about you, but I grew today. You know, we're all gonna go through pain and we're gonna all go through struggles. You know, football is a beautiful sport. And a lot of times when kids act up in life, right, parents take away things. And the first thing they usually take away is sports. But what I found, you know, I might not have had everything growing up. I'm getting emotional tonight. This is crazy. I'd rather go get punched in the face by Chris or something. Like, I'm getting emotional because just being in this room with a lot of these people that I looked up to in my life. I looked up to Jimmy Jones. I used to go on my mom's bus, and I was fortunate enough that Coach Sam would allow me as a young kid to sit passenger side. And I used to hear them chant, and people just can't understand why I will never leave Freeport. I can't. It's in me. This community is in me. It's a part of me. I told Coach Sellen that I owe Freeport so much. I don't think you guys could ever understand. So I'm never gonna stop pouring into you. Never gonna stop. And that's what tonight's about. And I promise you, this won't be the last night. This won't be the last event. Enjoy the rest of the night. I think I know the guy that owns the place. Yes.
Let me get one of my cameras.
Come on, man. Get on here, Becky.
Everybody, let's hear it.